Okay, now I've got a link. Yeah, apparently the camera mode was just when you want to solo. Sorry about that. So, this is a pickup. This is the second half of the first. Oh, man. I just want to get back to my main topic. I don't have time for this drama nonsense stupidity of people who don't understand facts and information, logical and deduction. Like, that's just. If you don't understand those basic components, I don't have time for you. You're silly little kids, and you're making claims about me that if you actually believe any of that crap, call the cops on me. Yeah, yeah, you know my name. My address is out there. My full name is on my YouTube account. You want to make an accusation like that? Call the cops on me. Stupid punk kids. That you want to slander my name? Yeah, I will take you to court if you call the cops on me and you report me and all that sort of thing. I will fight this. You moronic little kids have nothing. I don't want to waste this entire stream talking about childhood trauma. I'm saying the facts are on my side. Unless you have counter facts, unless you have counter evidence, unless you have something, some bit of evidence to change my mind, STF up, STFU. I shouldn't use that acronym. Just shut your mouth. If all you have is your moral grandstanding and virtue signaling and saying, "Oh, how dare he say that about," like, that it's the truth. People in that community, if they actually followed through on the logic of what they're actively preaching, what their mantra is for their community, acceptance of everything. What is off limits? Oh, well, not that. Why not? Not that, because these are people who encourage, like, they talk about pup play, and this is part of these communities of things that are acceptable is having adults act like toddlers, wearing diapers and crapping on themselves and having other adults clean them up. Adults dressing up as horses, wearing leather outfits, having someone put a leash on them and whip them as they run around a course. Those are things that are actively accepted. There's no okay. And yet if there's no rules, and they're like, "Oh, how dare you shame them for their lifestyles?" That's the mentality. "Oh, how dare you? Who are you to say that this is something that's abnormal?" That's the mantra of the LGBT community. It's You cannot separate that and say, you cannot act as if, oh, well, what would be over the line? Is necrophilia over the line for the LGBT community? But where do they draw the line, and why do they draw that line anywhere? I have yet to hear a valid reason for anything along those lines. If you have a valid reason, change my mind. The Steven Crowder, like, imagine I'm sitting at a desk and I have this big sign that says, change my mind. As far as I know, I'm speaking from a position of truth. If you have facts, if you have evidence to the contrary, if you have something that you can come to me with and help me to see the truth, do that. Instead, what I get is people claiming that I'm a pedophile and saying that I should be investigated by cops. People claiming that I hate the LGBT community. If I hated them, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care what happens to them. I would say the suicide rate is higher than Ashkenazi Jews, and well, not just Ashkenazi, but any Jews during the Holocaust, and it's higher than slaves in the American slave during American slavery. If I hated that community, I would say that number isn't high enough. And yet, what do I advocate in my videos? What have I always talked about? That is a tragedy. And obviously, surgery isn't helping. This acceptance movement isn't helping. There should, and yet all of that is it's either making the problem worse or the problem is staying the same. You can look up statistics on this. It is not changing. It's not helping them. My goal is to help them. If what we've always done isn't working, we need to stop doing what we've always done. Something new has to change. And yet all I hear from people in the LGBT community is more of the same. In fact, we need more people involved in this. They're encouraging gender dysphoria. There's something currently called rapid onset gender dysphoria. That is a new phenomenon. Someone who is like so this is what I think my friend is a victim of. something tragic happened to him. There has never been any, from like I've had conversations with this guy for known him for years. Never any signs that he wasn't anything other than a normal person. Maybe a little shy, you know, like because we're a group of computer programmers in the Air Force that we're all a bit introverted, all a bit off. Spend time playing Dungeons and Dragons and board games and making nerd jokes and doing what DDR, like whatever. We're nerds. So obviously there's a little bit of that. Never any inclination that he didn't think he was a man. In fact, he had sex with a woman and had a kid. Someone who thinks they're a woman, that's if you're a woman, you don't have sex with a woman and produce offspring. If you think you are a woman, that means you would have sex with a man and produce offspring. And that's just maybe I'm like old-fashioned for thinking that's how biology works. Anyway, because if you actually think that you're a woman and you're like, oh, I'm a woman trapped in a man's body, shouldn't becoming pregnant be the goal, as opposed to I want my sperm to uh, um not impregnate I want my sperm to fertilize an egg. Is that the thought of a woman? Is that I guess that's the gender stereotypes of the norm. Like, no, that's the norm for 96+% of the world. That's why I say those behaviors are deviations. 4% population of the world, not just the population of America, not just the population of the world. 4% out of 7.8 billion. I have to do the math. I can't do that one in my head, but let's see. The number of people. Well, maybe that's not the actual number of. It might be something like 7.2 billion. Let's just say 7.2 billion. Let's see. That's going to be 72. That's 72,000. Not enough zeros there. That's going to be 72 million. Okay, so 4% of the population belongs to the LGBT community. That is 288 million out of 7 billion. 288 million. Oh, that's a huge group. That is statistically 288 million out of 77.2 billion is not a significant number. That is not even the population of the U.S. That is like saying the entire. Maybe that's not a very good analogy there, because the U.S. is not based on population, but it's the overall power of the country itself. But China is several billion, and India are several billion. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a 4%. I'm trying to put this in perspective. And the only other good analogy I can think of is carbon in the atmosphere being 4% of greenhouse gases, and yet there's people who think that 4% controls the entire environment. I can't think of a good example on how statistically irrelevant 4% is. It is well beyond standard deviations from the norm. That's why you say deviation. It's referring to statistical anomalies, standard deviations from the norm. There is normal trend line. There is 96% of the population of the planet falls into that norm. They fall into gender norms and biological norms. It's let's see. I'm trying to think. Statistically, there are more people with cancer, and yet your odds of getting struck by lightning, I think. No, I don't think that's significant. I'll have to look up the exact number. I don't. But 4%. It's a deviation. That's the main. I'm getting lost in tangents here and trying to come up with a good analogy. It's not even the point of this stream. I sent out the hangouts. You can. Uh, all right, I'm done with the drama here. The other side of this particular topic, when it comes to what they've been talking about, is personal attacks against me, and nothing but vitriol, and say nothing but pointing out individuals within the LGBT community who don't agree with pedophilia. Yes, you're going to have people like that. You're going to have people who are Democrats who don't agree with Nancy Pelosi or Ocasio-Cortez. That doesn't mean that she's not mainstream. That Nancy Pelosi is mainstream Democrat. Ocasio-Cortez is becoming the new mainstream Democrat. You can point out a group within a group that doesn't agree with what the mainstream is doing. That's why it's called anecdotal evidence. You don't look at the anecdote, you don't look at individual incidents to disprove a general trend. Now, you can point out a general trend and then examples of that general trend. That's what I have done. That is statistically acceptable. You're saying, here is the trend as a whole. Here are examples of that trend in effect. Those examples don't prove the trend. The trend is why those examples are usable. Ugh. It's if the trend line were the other way and I was citing examples that that were against that trend, that would be inadmissible. Because those individual examples, that's called cherry picking data. When you point to individual examples that contradict a general trend, that is cherry picking data. Ugh. Man, explaining these general because most of the people I talk to, most of those idiotic high schoolers and college age kids, they don't know about any of these things. They haven't taken these classes. They haven't studied philosophy. They haven't studied the basics of logic, the basics of reasoning. They have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know, they're ignorant, and they act as if they know. And so if they have evidence, if they have the truth, they should tell me about that instead of shutting me down and and you know, it's and making personal attacks against me. It's yeah. I linked sources to what I was saying. I backed up everything I was saying. They sent me nothing but events of people who are in that who don't agree with it. And I'm like, that's not how arguments work. You guys are morons. I don't care about the opinions of morons. Okay, can I get back on freaking topic? Okay, C.A.R.D. Covington, abortion. Was actually supposed to be for race because this is tied with the Covington incident. So the Covington incident, which I started talking about, was the original narrative. They were talking about this group of boys surrounding this Native American man and blocking his path. The actual footage shows up. They were waiting for a bus. They were standing around. A group of black Israelites protesters came up to them and saw the mega hats and were started hurling harassment at them, started cussing at them. Then this Native American guy comes along and acts as if he's going to be the peacekeeper and walk between them and keep the mega people from attacking the black Israelites from the guys. Yes, they were wearing mega hats. Okay, yeah, they're conservatives. They support the president. That's his slogan. Does that mean that they are racist? According to leftists and Democrats, yes. Anybody who would dare support Trump must. That doesn't lead to people being beaten up and harassed. It's so backwards. Everything that Democrats and the left believe. They think that if I talk about facts and statistics concerning the LGBT community, if I make rational arguments based on what I know concerning that group, that will lead to the death of people in that community. I have not said anything about them being evil. I have not said they are literally the scourge of the earth. I have not compared them to Nazis. I have not compared them to the KKK or lynch mobs. And yet that is what That is what their group does. That is what the LGBT community, the social justice warriors, leftist Democrats, that is what they do to kids wearing MAGA hats. And this actually ties back to what we talked about last week with the Gillette ad. And the brilliant Bob Murphy tweeted this. He was saying, Gillette made an ad last week talking about how we need to stand up when we see a mob bullying children. And that's exactly what was going on. They were standing around, minding their own business, hanging out as a group, waiting for buses to take them back to their school. A group of activists who saw the MAGA hats, assumed racism, came over, started hurling insults, started talking. They were using the N-word to describe black students who were amongst the Covington kids. No one is talking about that, and that's what I meant with the whole shell game, the 3-card Monte. That is the story that is being overshadowed in all of this. Started all of this, and they get off scot-free, and no one they are gone. They are the Queen of Hearts who's off the table. Like, that's the main thing that people should be focusing on in this incident. Completely off the table. This Nathan Phillip guy comes along, starts chanting and beating a drum in people's face, which this is the apparently he was singing some sort of song, but if you listen to the video, it's the same over and over again. I don't know if those are actual words in the Indian language or something. I don't know. It sounds like he's just mindlessly beating on a drum and chanting the same whatever over and over again. It's maybe that's a music. I don't know if that's traditional whatever. But if somebody came up and did that in my face, I would ask, what is the point? I would talk to them and like, what is your point? What are you protesting here? This is not communication. If your point is to prove something to me or to change my mind, what you're doing right now doesn't do that. When I was at the Phyllis Schlafly event in St. Louis, there was the only protest we had there. We had Stefan Monley there. We had Mike Cernovich there. We had Cassandra Fairbanks. Laura Loomer was there, but whatever. Jack Posobiec was there. James O'Keefe was there. All of these major conservative figures. The only guy who got protested at that entire event was a guy talking about climate change. And the protesters sat there, one of the guys was wearing a suit, whatever. I don't know if he was a participant in setting up the thing and people didn't know he was protesting. Anyway, he got in there and all they chanted was when scientists lie, people die, scientists lie, people die. And they sat there for like 2 minutes walking around and chanting. I didn't sit there, but it was 2 minutes of them just mindlessly chanting when scientists lie, people die. That was their entire argument. I'm like, how? If you think we are wrong, your job is to convince us that we're wrong. And yet, chanting over and over again as if repetition of something, a mindless repetition of something doesn't make it true. You cannot convince someone by going in their face, saying the same thing over again, or making loud noises and disrupting an event, or annoying someone, getting in their face and doing things. That doesn't convince anyone. If anything, that makes them more certain that they are correct. If you want to actually convince someone, you have to appeal to the facts, okay, so I guess I have to specify here. You have to appeal to what appeals to them. When you're talking to someone who sets their mind on facts, logic, and reasoning, the way you reach them is with facts, logic, and reasoning. Now, if you're talking to someone who does everything based on emotion, well, you have to reach them at an emotional level. You have to get to their sympathies. You have to understand, okay, what do they think about? What do they care about? What's important to them? And how can I prove that what they're advocating is contradictory to that? Which is why when I talk about the LGBT community, it is a staggering fact that the suicide rates amongst transgendered individuals it's too high. It is higher than veterans of the U.S. military. Veterans are one of the veterans and homeless people in the United States have the highest suicide rates out of the trans community. The trans community has higher people who saw combat, people who held their dying friends in their arms, people who participated in attacks where children were blown up and they saw limbs and severed bodies. The LGBT community transgendered individuals who have never seen dead bodies, have never been traumatized by war, are committing suicides at rates higher than individuals who have. And, that's what I'm saying. That's something that needs to be addressed. Something that should be a blaring alarm that something is wrong with what you guys are advocating be done amongst the transgender communities to alleviate that problem. Because it has not improved with transgender surgery. It has not improved with plastic surgery to feminize men and to make women more masculine. It has not done anything. The more acceptance does not change those statistics. The putting Chelsea Manning as a trans example of trans gender people, putting I keep thinking Bruce Jenner. What's the Caitlyn Jenner as Woman of the Year, even though she's hasn't even been a woman for an entire year. Well, I guess unless you're saying, oh well, Bruce Jenner was born a man or was born a woman and didn't realize it until after he had won the males triathlon, the gold medal in it, at the Olympics, and then when he was in his 40s, 50s, realized that he was a woman and had been a woman ever since birth. Like it's beyond ridiculous. But though advocating those as shining examples of transgender people hasn't done anything. Nobody is. I shouldn't say nobody. The vast majority of the United States accepts transgenders as they are. No one is dehumanizing them. No one is dragging them out in the streets and beating them. I guess I can't say no. Like the hashtag not all. The vast majority, 99.9% of people in the US have no animosity towards people who are transgender. They don't beat them up. They don't shoot them and kill them and murder them. There are there's a small number of incidents where that does happen to people in the trans community. The number one, the most dangerous group to transgender individuals right now are the transgender individuals to themselves. There's more incidents of suicide than there are these supposedly beatings because of dehumanization and all that sort of thing. I'm trying to reach them at that sympathy level because I'm saying this is a problem. It's a problem for me because the idea of a group of individuals committing suicide is terrible. Suicide is entirely preventable. It is a huge problem in the United States. If you talk about like there's the male suicide rates, these suicide rates in the United States, it's people actively killing themselves. This is entirely preventable. Gang violence, not as preventable. Murders due to break-ins, not all that preventable. There's no matter how much no matter how much we do as far as protective measures, there's still going to be some level of that. But suicides can be entirely prevented. There is no crime is going to happen because there are malicious, evil people. But suicides means someone has lost all hope. That's something that is preventable. And I've talked about this on previous streams. I hate to keep bringing this up as a central focus because I don't want these sorts of things to be the central focus of my channel, but this seems to be where all the drama is, and every week is dragging me back into these things. I'm coming at it from as entirely an analytical perspective. That's how my mind works. My emotions are not in this. I don't put pedophilia into the LGBT community because you have some sort of animosity towards the LGBT community. I'm saying that's logically where it ends up. You cannot separate the two. But And Conundrum, there's a link now. I've got it set up as a separate thing. I don't know where he is or how he got a hold of the first one. Yeah. Okay. So C.A.R.D. So the abortion thing. This has been making the news. New York just legalized late-term abortions, and so the procedure, so the information that I've been able to cover up, I haven't had too much time to look into this, but I saw the tweets during lunch breaks and things like that, and I've been getting spammed on my phone, people talking about this, up to 9 months. And the way that this particular procedure that was acceptable, or that is now acceptable by law, it is not the typical abortion where they stick forceps into the woman's womb, and that they were to the vagina up to the womb and start ripping. Or well, they actually the first they take a vacuum tube, shove it up there, force it through the child's skull, suck out the brains, and then they take forceps up there and they rip out individual body parts and the guts and whatever, and make sure that they get all the fetal tissue. That's disgusting on its own. This late term abortion procedure, because that particular type of abortion would be too dangerous to the mother. Instead, they inject the fetus with basically the same kind of. Um, it's not exactly the same, from what I can tell. Like similar to a lethal injection. They poison the infant inside the mother's womb. It dies inside the mother's womb. The mother gives birth to a dead baby. It still goes through the regular birthing process with the whole baby coming out intact, but it's dead. It's similar to a stillbirth. That is now legally acceptable in New York. So the media paints people wearing MAGA hats as racist, and it's okay to hurl insults at them based on simply wearing a hat and saying vile speech against them, lying about them. So Nathan Phillips in this whole thing. As far as I know, he's just some kind of old whatever. So nobody should care about his opinion. He seems to be kind of like a race baiting, basically the Indian version of Jesse Jackson. Anytime anybody says something bad about him, it's not about him personally, it's about his race. Anytime you know, oh, someone was wearing, you know, was wearing an Indian costume, and that's so insulting to his entire race, and he's got to scream about it, how they were harassing him and his culture. He's one of those guys, so nobody should really care about his opinion. He's a crazy person, and yet he went on national TV and was talking about how these kids from Covington High School were chanting about build a wall, and were saying he should whatever, he doesn't belong there or something. I don't know exactly. He was making up lies about what they were saying, when if you watch the videos, none of that occurred. And the young man who was beating the drum in his face said nothing. He just sat there, smiled at the guy, didn't say anything in response. And what was pointed out a little bit later is when somebody was actually going to start, talking to Mr. Phillips, and try to explain, just start an argument with him. Instead, the young man who's sitting there, this smirk that is punchable, according to all these leftists. So all of these issues are related. I'm trying to tie them together. That's why I started talking about abortion. Now I'm going back to the Covington issue, because the same people who are perfectly fine with giving a fetus in the womb a lethal injection, having the mother essentially give birth to a stillborn or dead child, that's not a problem for them. They don't care about children in that incident. And those same people who were talking about the Parkland shooting victims, oh, we have to take away all your guns to defend our children. Those same people, the exact same news organizations, the exact same Democrats, the exact same leftists, all the people who were talking about how terrible the Parkland shooting was and how we need to protect our children, those same exact people are now saying, look at his face. He's smiling. Have you ever punchable face? They're perfectly fine with killing fetuses in womb at 9 months. They're perfectly fine with taking away firearms and saying it's to protect our children. And they're also perfectly fine with punching a kid in the face for smiling in the face of what was harassment on his part. He was standing there. Nathan Phillips marched up to him, beating his drum. He did nothing. He didn't go up and approach Mr. Phillips. He wasn't harassing Mr. Phillips. He didn't say anything negative towards him. As far like you can watch the video footage, there are a few uh, teenagers with that group, and according to the staff at Covington and according to the other students who go to Covington, those individuals who are making those comments are not with them. They are not a part of that school. They were just teenagers who happened to be in the area, saw a gathering of kids, and joined the group because they wanted to know what was going on. And this incident happened, and they were saying things. I don't know that I have yet to hear any news organization coming out with anything other than that. But all of this is, again, it's the shell game. Like, that is the Queen of Spades and the Queen of Clubs. Nathan Phillips and the Covington kids, Queen of Spades, Queen of Clubs. The Queen of Hearts was the Black Israelite group that started all of this. That none of the media, at least not leftist media, not the mainstream media, is talking about. I'm like, dude, these get. If you watch the videos, listen to what they're saying. This is the hate group. This is the group that both the left and the right should be despising, and they have scot free. Both groups are ignoring this group. Like everybody's like, oh, whatever, they don't matter. Nathan Phillips and Covington, we gotta support and defend Covington. Oh, we gotta support and defend Phillips. Like, you're letting the Queen of Hearts go off the table here. Okay, there is no consistency with the people who say we should Kathy Griffin was on there talking about doxing the kids in this video from Covington, talking about going and harassing their families, making sure that they don't. So one of the kid in the video, I forget his name, Nathan something. No, Nathan Phillips is the Indian guy. What was the kid's name? Man, I'm terrible with names. No, so he was doxxed or whatever, but his name is out there, so it shouldn't be. Because he was actually interviewed. So maybe I'm not going to give his name. Uh, yeah, I'm not quite sure if his name was made public or if it was doxxed. Anyway, Kathy Griffin was talking about doxing them. So this young man had, he's in high school. I understand that. So was trying to become a chef. He already had colleges either looking over him or possibly have accepted him. And Kathy Griffin is calling people to figure out which colleges those are and make sure that he doesn't get admitted to those colleges. The same people on the left who were saying, who are like, oh, this is such a tragedy with Parkland. We've got to protect our kids. Are advocating for ruining the lives of other kids. For what? What did this kid do that was so evil that the rest of his life that you have to ruin his career? He wore a hat, stood there while someone was banging a drum in his face, stood there while people were calling him and his group the N-word, saying they were evil people, saying they were racist. Stood there and took the abuse. And for that, people like Kathy Griffin, people like on the media, want to ruin his life. What did he do that deserves his career being jeopardized, what he is currently working for being jeopardized? I still haven't heard any good answer to that. And also, the SPLC they like to label everything as a hate group, which is one thing. But the Black Israelite group, based on the comments alone in that video alone, should be recognized. This is basically a what is the difference between them and the KKK? I have no idea. They are basically, I guess, just the color of their skin. All of the speech patterns, everything that they wanted, everything they were saying, I was like, dude, that's exactly what I would expect a white supremacist or a KKK member to say to black people. That is exactly what I would expect a KKK member to tell a white person if he was hanging out with black people. The only difference is a reverse skin color. Like KKK is whites, and they would condemn whites for hanging out with blacks. These black Israelite groups are black, and they're condemning black students for being a part of a group that had white people, that was majority white. The exact opposite of what Martin Luther King was talking about. So that's the racial component. So it's gone. So this is like, forget 3-card Monte. They started doing 15-card Monte because first it was Nathan Phillips was the victim, and then it was, oh wait, Nathan Phillips wasn't the victim, but well, now it was now that the entire group. So they were saying the Black Israelites and Nathan Phillips and the entire was being bullied, and when that was disproven, then they were like, well, now the news media is being bullied. They changed their story 3 times, and you can read this all on Twitter. People have been posting about this. They started talking about, oh well, we were mostly right, and like, no, you weren't, because they were talking about how they started saying kids. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Because there's teenage kids who were in the group but not with the group. They were there or at around the scene, but according to staff at Covington and according to other students, those individuals who um, were actually making what could be considered harassing comments were not with the Covington group, and yet the media was saying that they were. And so when they're caught in a lie on that, then like, oh, well, people are now harassing journalists. Oh, poor journalists. Like, so at first it was Nathan Phillips the only victim. Now Nathan Phillips and his entire group and the Black Israelites are victims. Oh, well, that's not really the case. Okay, so the news media is the victims. Oh, we got duped into this, and now we're being attacked for not being correct. I'm like, it's it is so absurd. And the other thing is this: that while all of this is going on, this is distracting from the Black Israelite group. It's distracting from the abortion law that got passed in New York. It's distracting from the ongoing government shutdown. And that's where we get to our D, the Dems talking about the government shutdown. Like these, so that the main things that people should be focusing on, we're being distracted by all of this nonsense. Like Nathan Phillips, who cares? He seems like a crazy race baiting idiot. Uh, there's another thing about his story where people were claiming that he was some Vietnam era vet. No, I guess maybe Vietnam era was kind of correct because he apparently did join the Marines around the time of the Vietnam War, but was never deployed to Vietnam. So even by his own, were trying to say, oh, he's a veteran of Vietnam. Even according to Phillips, that's not the case. He was apparently a Marine, but no way, there's no possible way that he would have set foot in Vietnam during the war. Ugh. Dude, I spent too much time trying to rattle off everything that I remember from throughout the weekend and right now, and because I took too much time to talk about stupid issues that came about last week. This is already resolved in my mind. The facts are on my side. I haven't heard any contradictory facts. Yeah. So anybody else want? Yeah. Sorry to spend so much time on those other things. I wanted to talk about these topics in particular, and wasn't allowed to. Uh. Uh-oh. I think I just screwed up my cube. Alright. Dude, this is... I forgot where I was going. What was I talking about? Okay, C.A.R.D. I'll stick with that. So the Covington incident happened over the weekend. Whole bunch of lies covering up what actually was going on, distracting news media. Still, the MSN has not been talking about the actual hate group. Oh, the SPLC, even though they're so wrong on so many things, at least they acknowledge that this Black Israelite group is a hate group. Abortion thing in New York. Oh, here's the other thing. Oh, that was the other thing. The news media started talking about Covington. They so they started releasing images of Covington High School basketball games. The first ones that came out were them doing this maneuver, which we all know is, oh, it's white supremacist. No, because this 3-pointer basketball games. There's countless images of professional basketball players shooting 3-pointers doing this. People posted images of the basketball team from this high school doing this after 3-pointers in a game and acting as if it's, oh, this is a white supremacist, this is white power. Or I don't know. It's like, does it matter if it's this way or if it's this way? Absolutely. This is the universal sign for okay. 3-pointer in a basketball game. Nothing to do with white supremacy. This is not white power. It's a joke started on 4chan. Or not 4chan, 4chan. Joke started on 4chan. There's documented evidence that somebody posted this as a joke and said we can get the media to believe that okay is a white power hand gesture. And the news media knows this. They know that they started broadcasting this as some white power hate speech movement. And the okay symbol is not. They know it was started on 4chan as a joke to see if they could get the news media to say that this is a white power symbol. They know that is the source. They still keep running with it. They're trying to say that the Covington kids are racist for doing this hand sign at basketball games, despite this being used commonly when someone shoots a 3-pointer in a basketball game. The other thing is there are images of the kids from Covington in all black. Not blackface. It's called a blackout. I'm not familiar with basketball all that much, so I did know 3-pointer as soon as I saw the image. I was like, dude, are you guys kidding me? Like, it's okay. And I don't watch basketball. I don't know much about the sport. Okay, but I do know that there are certain things that are like people go to sporting events. They will wear their team colors. Like people paint themselves like blue and white for what people will paint up their entire bodies. They'll go as a group, and each person will put a letter of the team name across their chest or some kind of slogan. In basketball games, this happens around the country. There's something called blackout games where people show up covered head to toe in black paint. Blackface is just the face and is, well, it's kind of been, there are a lot of things about that the universal narrative for it isn't accurate, because there was people keep saying, oh, it's racist and it's insulting, and they may be right on that. I am not certain. For a lot of people who were respectful, and it was not an imitate. It was not. Its imitation is a sincerest form of flattery. It wasn't started out insulting an entire group. There are a lot of people who did that. No, there are examples of people alive today who did this. Jimmy Kimmel was in blackface when he was mocking Charles Barkley. Nobody cared. Like, that was a funny skit. Dude, what's his name? So the reverse of that, Dave Chappelle. Chappelle show is amazing. Excellent comedy. I mean, super insightful. And Key and Peele kind of, well, okay, after Dave Chappelle's show ended, they started what Chocolate News or something like that. It was absolutely terrible. And Key and Peele had some very racially based skits that were amazing. But one of the things Dave Chappelle had a white character that he played. He does his stereotypical white guy voice, making fun of white people. He's played characters where he painted his entire face white. He was playing a character who wasn't black. No, the best example. I mean, well, he wasn't white during that, but he was playing the black white supremacist. That's like one of the greatest sketches of all time. Uh, Clayton Bigsby. Now, nobody says Dave Chappelle is racist when he puts on whiteface and is playing a white character. Eddie Murphy in Coming to America plays an old Jewish guy. He plays multiple characters throughout a bunch of his films. An old Jewish guy. He's completely in makeup. You can't even really tell it's Eddie Murphy. And he's telling that stupid joke about the soup, which it's one of those jokes where I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Oh, that's so bad. And yet it yeah, it's not funny because it's not good. It's yeah, but it fits the scene because that's the character he's playing, and it's amazing. His character acting ability, I mean, his more recent acting endeavors have been pretty. Haven't been up to his previous standard of excellence. I mean, yeah. So, but nobody says, "Oh, that's whiteface. That's insulting to Jewish people." No, Jewish people like, yeah, that's like when a stereotype is done well to the point where you're like, yeah, okay, that's us. That's us guys. That's fine. It's oh, I managed to fix that. Weird. Um, sorry, I got so sidetracked talking about blackface. So there's the incident of the little kid who dressed up like his favorite, I don't know, football player or basketball player. It's probably football player, I think. And he put black on his face to more accurately emulate the player he was a fan of. And people are like, oh, that's terrible. And I'm like, he's trying to imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. How is that? He's not doing it in a malicious way. Now, granted, if it's done to insult an entire race or it's done in a malicious way to misrepresent someone, okay, that shouldn't be done. But simply putting black on your face, like I can't think of the Charles Barkley thing, the Jimmy Kimmel as Charles Barkley. He was making fun of Charles Barkley, but he wasn't making fun of Charles Barkley for being black. He was trying to make himself look like Charles Barkley, and he was sounding like he was doing a voice impression of Charles Barkley and saying really stupid things. That wasn't an insult to all of black people. It was an insult to Charles. It was harmless ribbing at Charles Barkley's expense. It wasn't anything major that's like, ooh, how dare he say that? No, it's just okay. Yeah, it's a goofy sketch. It wouldn't have made sense if he wasn't trying to more accurately portray Charles Barkley. It would just be an accent or whatever. It. I'm trying to. Uh, so maybe I'm just rambling at this point, going off on rails. So anyway, it's about intent. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's about intent. And if the intent is not there, someone at a basketball game wearing head-to-toe black paint is not there to insult black people. It's called a blackout thing. It's the entire body. It's not just the face, and it's a sports thing. It has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with insulting an entire race. It has nothing to do with insulting individuals. And then so people have been posting pictures of Covington doing special events for different basketball games. One where they're all dressed up in like in a green and wearing Irish stuff. One where they're dressed up as there's a whole bunch of different dressing up things. This has nothing to do with race. Has nothing to do with this. Is people celebrate stereotypes or cultures. Like this is this whole idea of cultural appropriation and all this is nonsense, and it all goes. Uh, that's what all of this is kind of going back to, is like you can't appreciate anything, you can't imitate something you enjoy because someone will determine that your intentions are racist, even if your intentions are like, no, I just like it. If you like Japanese culture and you wear a kimono, they'll say, oh, that's cultural appropriation. Cultural, it's a, appreciation. Appreciation. It's you're assuming that the intent of the person wearing Japanese culture is to take it for themselves and preventing the original people who created or the other people who want to wear that or embody that culture can't have it. That would be appropriating someone. It's taking it from them so they can't do it. Doing it yourself because you like it, because you enjoy it, because you want to spread it. Like, hey, I want other people to know about this and how awesome this is. Spreading it around, that's good. It, it's, ugh. I I don't understand the world when it does these absolutely insane things. When it labels the levels that the media has tried to go to label these kids as racist, as evil, as terrible people. And then when they're called out on it, when they're shown that they're making up lies, or they're taking things, or they're going off on ridiculous tangents, and then the media retreats and like, oh, we're the victim. How dare people harass us? I'm like, because that's you were calling for high school students to get denied entry into college. You were called for them to be doxxed, for people to harass their families. You don't get to play victim after doing something like that. You don't get to play victim after cheering the fact that 9-month-old fetuses, as long as they're still in the womb, can be murdered by a lethal injection, and they still get through the birth canal like the regular birth, not C-section or anything along those lines. You're cheering when that happens. People who cheer when that happens and who say that we should go around punching children in the face. Well, I guess I shouldn't say children. I should say high school students. I mean, you're talking about 16, accurate to call them children. Although a lot of people in defense of the Covington kids, man, terrible, 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 inaccurate vernacular. Teenagers, talking about these teenagers in high school, talking about punching them in the face, talking about ruining their lives, talking about, you know, advocating violence against them, advocating doxing their family, harassing their family. The same people who are doing that are cheering the fact that it is now legal to kill a 9-month-old baby, as so long as the baby hasn't been born yet. And, and then if you say anything bad, if you say like, hey, if you tell them that that is wrong, they're like, oh, how dare you tell me what I can do? You're telling everyone else what is right and wrong. Who makes you the sovereign or whatever, where you get to say, hey, everybody else is wrong, and when anybody criticizes you, you get to, oh no, I'm you can't criticize me. That's the it is very, very frustrating. And sorry, the de-loving thing, the abortion thing, the race thing. So the race had tied into these stories because of the Black Israelite thing, where they were hurling slurs at black students, and they were calling the kids racist for wearing MAGA hats, and then were trying to claim that we're racist for doing okay hand or 3-point hand signals. Matter signal it, even if they were flipping the bird, uh, doesn't matter. They're not like, it's not like they're acting as if they have images of the kids from Covington taking black students out back and beating them with shovels or something along those lines. Okay, if that was going on, yes. if they were denying the black students access to the bathrooms, or if they were denying them, if they were keeping them outside of the the classroom and made them listen through the walls, or so, if they're doing stuff like okay, yes, blatant racism, separation. So if they were, you know, if they were chasing them down in vehicles for dating white women or anything, but there's nothing like that, and people are acting as if what happened is the equivalent of segregation because there was images. So this is the other thing that there were images. People were posting images of segregation events where some idiotic white bullies were attacking black students at a lunch line, and they were saying the Covington kids were the equivalent of that. Show us how. How is anything that we have evidence of the equivalent of that? It's not even in the same boat, in ballpark. That people are so quick to jump on racists and so quick to divide people based on race. It's going to lead to a war. And when I talk about sympathies, talk about reaching people, so emotions do have a part to play when someone is emotionally driven. When you're trying to reach somebody like that, you have to go to. There's a reason why I am so adamantly against dividing people based on race. It's because it's going to lead to war and people are going to die. That's what happens when race wars ensue. Looking for reasons where we're different. People keep looking for reasons to divide people. That's terrible. It's going to lead to violence akin along the lines of the Civil War. We are going to start seeing these radical people forming up into factions and armies and actively going to war with each other. Um, that's eventually there's going to be shot heard around the world, and it's going to be an all-out race war. That's something we need to avoid at all costs because the sanctity of human life is it should not be it uh, should not be treated so insignificantly as these people who are encouraging these race wars, encouraging activities that would lead to that. I'm trying. If the Covington kids were being equivalents of the KKK, like everybody's trying to claim, there should be evidence of that. There should be proof of that, and yet all they have is proof to the contrary, proof of them being attacked, and instead of retaliating, saying, you know what, okay, I'll let you vent. I'm just going to stand here and take it. That's what we have proof of. We have no proof of retaliation from their side. We have no proof of harassment from their side. We have no proof of them being racist in any way, shape, or form. No proof of them being violent or malicious towards the black students who are a part of their high school. No proof of any of that. And then, and all of this is detracting from the current wall, which I put that could be just denial. There's a lot of people living in denial and saying that that would not work. It wouldn't solve anything. It wouldn't fix anything. And it's another point of contention with the stupid group who has been labeling me as something that I am not. Um, they keep the point they keep trying to drive home is, oh, but it wouldn't be effective. How? When? I don't can't remember. I think it was Jack Provic who tweeted about this, breaking it down, talking about it is estimated that each illegal crossing costs the United States, I think it was $74,000. So even if the wall stops, I think it was 200 individuals, it would pay. So I gotta look up the actual uh, the math on that. That up real fast. Hopefully, I remember reading that pretty recently. Oh, look, I got somebody trying to. Yeah, I don't care what you guys have to say. Let's see. Let's see if I can bring up the sit down because no, I want to talk about Venezuela too, but I don't have time for that. Okay. Oh, Charlie Kirk. Okay, so according to the NAS, the cost of each illegal border crossing is $74,722. If a wall stopped another between 160,000 to 200 illegal to 200 illegals, only 9 to 12% effective, it would save the taxpayers 12 to 15 billion dollars. 9 to 12% effective. Look at Israel's wall. Their statistics on Israel's wall and the number of illegal crossing on that border through it is 90 something percent effective. If we do something similar along our southern border, being 9 to 12%, that's easy. It could be 40% and pay itself off at looking at those particular figures. And even if your people are saying, "Oh well, you know, most illegals come over here back over the border, they already have established identities here. They already have established networks and relationships, previous employment. If they can cross, they they have every reason to come back over the border. And if it's wide open, like vast areas of our southern border are, other countries. I'm losing my internet connection here. Sorry about that, but yeah. It's usually a little bit better too because they help me keep things consistent because I tend to ramble on, going on tangents, and hopefully I tied everything to because there's common themes throughout everything, and all of these other things that the media keeps putting in front of our faces are the main thing that people should be focusing on. The main thing that people should be focusing on is this group called the Black Israelites, which is a terrible hate group that yeah should be more well known. You know, it's like, oh, that's a group we should be fighting. Yeah, that's a group we should all be. This is a group we can all say condemn, kind of shut them down, and make them not like make them something. Yeah, make them a non-issue. I mean, not as far as getting rid of them so they don't have a platform or anything. I'm advocating here. I'm not advocating violence or anything like that. But make them as inconsequential as it currently is. KKK has no power in the United States. They're an inconsequential. The Black Israelites should be on that same tier of universally demonized, and anytime they're brought up, people immediately, oh yeah, just them, ignore them, they're terrible. No media coverage, no nothing. Just kind of like, hey, we're just all gonna universally agree to ignore them and not cover anything they do, not get their message out there. Just say they're ostracized from the community. That should be something both left and right should be able to agree on. Ultimately, that's just the way the world is. I wish I can convince. I wish I could had some kind of argument that would help people to see that that is a human. That is not, especially at 9 months. That is a child. Any person could consider themselves moral, and it's it's absolutely abhorrent to think that there are members of our society who look at that and think yay and cheer for that. But that's what was going on this week. And then the denial of the wall actually working and Democrats fighting against the wall. It's yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good solution there either. It's people are going to be stupid, and I wish the world worked differently than it does. I'm just out here spreading what I know to be true. And I'm going to end this by talking about what I somewhat started talking about. If you or someone starting this section of the stream talking about, if you have something that you can prove that is true, anything that I've gone over here, if you can help me be more accurate, be more truthful, I am open to that. If you have something that contradicts it, and I can look into it, investigate, and be like, yeah, I'm not talking about something that contradicts it, as in, oh, this person said it, so I'm like, well, who is that person? Why should I? Why is their opinion important? Why do they matter? Something that is credible, tangible evidence that is provable. I will change my opinion accordingly on anything I've talked about tonight. On anything I've talked about ever. Dude, I've taken the personality test. It means I'm open. Like, if I gotta look up what I forget what the letters are. INFP? Is that the Myers Briggs? I mean, sorry, I don't remember the. I know I just recently had to take that again for the course I'm going. The course I'm taking as part of my new job. Yeah, INTP. Sorry, not INFP. It's INTP. Right? What is T? Yeah, I don't remember. So it's introverted, natural. I forget what the. Oh, T is thinking, not F. Yeah, so INTP. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, couldn't remember the acronym. Yeah, so INTP, and if you look at what the description of that, open to new ideas. So open, yeah, it because that's how you get creativity, which is vital to the job that I'm doing. Um, you need to be open to new ideas in order to solve problems, in order to be creative in problem solving. I don't dismiss new evidence. Anybody who brings me evidence, as long as it's credible evidence. My hey, Joe Blow says this. That's not credible evidence. That's not gonna. Would you be convinced if I said, well, some guy I talked to said that this is the case, therefore it's true? Would that be a convincing argument for you? If it's not a convincing argument for me to say, well, my roommate said this, or, well, I knew a guy who said this, if that's not an argument that would convince you, why are you using that as an argument to try to convince me? Because that's what arguments I've gotten to this point is people talking about other people. Well, other people don't agree with that. I'm like, yeah, okay. So that one group of people, that one handful, or that okay, that one person. Would you be convinced if I made the same argument using the same type of situation? No, that's not convincing evidence. It's not. I need something tangible, something concrete, something factual, something observable, something provable, something reliable. If you can bring me something like that contradicts the stuff that I've been talking about, I will gladly accept it and change my opinion. And I will come back on here and be like, hey, last week I said this. Information has changed. This has come to my attention, and I've changed my opinion based on it. I've shown that. I've hopefully demonstrated on that the entire year that I've been making these videos, or a year or more. I forget how long I've been doing this. All right, that's where I'm going to end this. I've been rambling on too much. Hopefully, I haven't been talking too loud, and people upstairs and maybe even roommates. I don't know. I don't know what their opinion is on all of this stuff. I don't know what their what they think about me and my perspectives. I haven't really talked political, so hopefully anything I've said on here, they can understand what I'm trying to say and where I'm coming from. If they overheard anything, uh, yeah, whatever. If they can't understand that I'm being entirely rational, then, well, their opinion should be ignored as irrational people. Uh, And that's where I'm gonna end this. Is irrational people's opinions should not matter to you, and I'm done dealing with the irrational, juvenile people that used to be in my streams. I've tried for years to reach out to them and to get them to stick to some kind of standard, get them to understand that there are standards, and get them to abide by some standards and hold themselves to fictions and hold themselves to consistency and constantly be seeking the truth. And yet, my words are falling on deaf ears, so I'm abandoning that cause and hopefully coming with finding a new group of people that I can have conversations with. But that's all I'm going to say for now. I guess when I switched over to the new stream, Conundrum didn't get the link. I don't know he was talking about coming on here. I would have let him, but as it is right now, that's as far as I'm going to go on this stream. So thanks for anybody who did join me. I'm going to sign off now.